Hiroshi Okado confesses his love for Chisato Chikaishi on the school rooftop as Kiriha and Kazuya watch in secret. Chisato rejects Hiroshi, stating she already likes someone, leaving Hiroshi upset. Kazuya is surprised Chisato likes someone while Kiriha sighs by Kazuya's obliviousness. Chisato helps Kazuya study in his room as Kiriha plays video games. Kazuya confronts Chisato about who she likes and Chisato refuses to tell. Kiriha looks through Chizato's bag for pudding, but finds a doll instead as Chisato grows increasingly embarrassed. Kazuya asks what the doll is and Chisato mellows down, telling them it is nothing. Hiroshi expresses his frustration over getting rejected as he plays computer games. While doing his video games manifests as an amasogi. Kazuya arrives at school the next day to find all the students interacting as couples. Tatami Tadada runs into Kazuya and falls over, exposing her panties to him. Tatami flusteredly questions Kazuya on whether or not he saw her panties. A dialogue prompts with a timer manifest in front of the girl, and Kazuya hastily makes a choice. Tatami slaps Kazuya and leaves. Kazuya arrives in his classroom to find all his classmates interacting as couples with the same dialogue prompts. Shiru, who is in dialogue interaction with Misako Misago, greets Kazuya and tells him of the great opportunity they have received from the dialogue system. As Kazuya sits down for class, Kiriha comes to the conclusion and explains that the dialogue system running throughout the school is caused by a gal game amasogi. Kazuya heads out to search for the amasogi, but finds Chisato being romanced by Hiroshi. Kazuya greets Chisato, who responds distantly. Kazuya confronts Hiroshi about what he has done to Chisato, but Chisato slaps Kazuya. Chisato and Hiroshi then leave, Hiroshi proclaiming his superior skills at playing Pure Heart. Kazuya and Kiriha realize that Hiroshi is the host of the amasogi and chase after him. Hiroshi calls upon his groupies to defend him from Kazuya. Kazuya meets with Osamu, explaining the situation and asking for advice. Osamu explains the workings of the Pure Heat dialogue system, telling Kazuya that his best chance to win Chisato back is to use the custom input dialogue option. Kazuya finds Chisato and enters custom dialogue input, asking her to help him study and increasing Chisato's affection for Kazuya. While studying in class tells compliments, Chisato's hands to no effect. Chisato, Kazuya, and Osamu have lunch together, Osamu complimenting Chisato to have her stay. Kazuya compliments Chisato's lunch-making skills and abilities as a household wife, increasing her affection with Kazuya. Chisato asks Kazuya about Kiriha's whereabouts, though no dialogue window appears. Osamu realizes the situation to be a free input conversation event. Before Osamu can warn Kazuya about answering carelessly, Kazuya tells Chisato that she is napping in her gym clothes. Chisato's affection decreases and she gets angry. Osamu, Kazuya, and Kiriha meet and discuss the situation. Osamu explains the only choice left for Kazuya is to exploit an event bug, which results in him maximizing his points. Hiroshi meets with Chisato beneath the school's sakura tree and prepares to confess his love. Kazuya interrupts them, Hiroshi already aware of the exploit, but unconvinced he can pull it off. Kazuya brings out a pair of dolls, one of which being Chisato's from earlier, and asks her to play house with him. Chisato remembers that when she and Kazuya were younger, they would play house together, Chisato playing as the mother doll and Kazuya the father doll. Kazuya grew tired of playing as the other kids ridiculed him and refused to. Chisato gave the father doll to Kazuya to keep so that they can play again in the future. Chisato accepts Kazuya's proposal, Kazuya winning over Chisato and Hiroshi crying as he runs away. Chisato and Kazuya rest in the nurse's office while Osamu and Kiriha head off to search for Hiroshi and the amasogi. Kazuya awakes to find Chisato kissing him naked on top of him while his limbs are bound to the bed. Hiroshi tells Osamu and Kiriha the game is running on a PC in the computer lab. Osamu realizes the PC version of the game is pornographic and the three rush to stop the event. Osamu and Hiroshi head to the computer lab, force quitting the game and destroying the amasogi. Kiriha rushes to the nurse's office. The next day at school, Kazuya and Chisato sit awkwardly next to each other. Osamu asks Kiriha if they actually had sex, to which Kiriha tells Osamu that he was unable to get the truth out of Kazuya. In the South Kamioka Park, Kiriha bullies Kukuri for giving them incorrect information on the curse forecast, and Kazuya tries to calm her down. Kokuyu arrives to inform Kukuri that she has to leave for work, explaining to Kazuya that she has taken up several part-time jobs to pay for their expenses. Kokuyu leaves and Kukuri pushes Kiriha off of her. Kukuri dons her Akujo mask and uses Minazuchi to no effect. Kiriha continues grappling Kukuri. Kazuya tells Kiriha to stop or else she will not get pudding. Kiriha releases Kukuri and Kazuya goes off to buy pudding. Kiriha engages in a chat with Kukuri after Kazuya has left. Kiriha inquires about Kukuri's depleted strength. Kukuri tells Kiriha that she cannot tell her yet, and Kiriha assumes it involves her reasoning of making Kazuya an exorcist. Kiriha threatens Kukuri into telling her, which Kukuri indulges in, but tells her to wait after completing their dam made of sand. Kids warn the two to watch out as a soccer ball slams into the dam, covering them both in mud. The two kids mock the pair for being covered in mud. Kiriha chases after the Toe kids as Kukuri laments her dam. Kazuya returns, confused by the situation. At the Kagami household, Kukuri and Kiriha wash each other as a result of Kukuri being too embarrassed to have Kazuya wash them, and Kiriha usually does. Kukuri notices Kiriha's chest has gotten larger, and Kiriha realizes she has gotten taller as well, a sign of her power returning due to Kazuya. In the bathtub, Kiriha continues their conversation at the playground, but Kukuri insists that she cannot tell her. Kiriha suggests they play shiratori and calls washboard, referring to Kukuri's chest. The two play shiratori, insulting each other before they are taken out. Kukuri thanks Kazuya and bids farewell before returning to the park. Kiriha tells Kazuya he is enough of a dog already. Kazuya brushes off Kiriha's insult before dropping his tray upon the realization that Kiriha is simply eating with the rest of his family. Kasumi and Kiriha argue about Kiriha insulting Kazuya. Kazuya inquires how she is already acquainted with his family, and Kiriha explains that she has been speaking with them since the day after she materialized, having already been acquainted with them when owned by his mother. Kazuya asks his father if he already knew Kiriha, which he affirms, having met long ago. Kazuaki remembers how in the past, Kiriha would thwart his various advances on Kanaka, mentioning Kiriha being akin to an in-law. Kiriha orders Kazuaki to get her some pudding, which he obediently complies. Kiriha enjoys her pudding, and Kazuya realizes that he forgot to give Kukuri her share. The two walk to the park to deliver the pudding to Kukuri and Kokuyu. The two arrive at the park to find the structure in which Kukuri had established her shrine to be demolished and boarded off. Kukuri runs crying towards Kiriha, lamenting her shrine. Kokuyu informs them that the structure was deemed dangerous as a result of a kid injuring themselves on it. Kiriha recalls it being one of the kids she chased earlier. Kukuri cries about having nowhere to sleep, but Kiriha tells her that she will make arrangements. Back at the Kagami house, Kasumi reiterates to Kazuya that they cannot keep pets, but Kazuya informs her that they are people as he welcomes Kokuyu and Kukuri into their home. Kazuya wakes up in his bed, Kiriha's legs over his face as she sleeps atop of him. Kazuya tiredly walks into the washroom, getting his sister and running face first in Kokuyu's naked breasts. Kokuyu asks Kazuya if he is satisfied, and Kazuya backs away apologizing. Kokuyu offers to let him fondle her breasts more as a reward, and Kukuri calls Kazuya out for being a pervert. Kazuya briefly questions why they are both in his how, before remembering what happened the night before. The night before, Kazuya negotiated with his father to let the two stay. Kazuaki told them the difficulties of caring for two more residents, while Kasumi expressed her concern of having Kokuyu in the same house as Kazuya. Kiriha asked Kazuaki if was sure that they could not let them stay, which he affirms. Kiriha began to recite a love poem, and Kazuaki punches Kiriha's speech bubble, agreeing to let the two of them stay. Kukuri sets up their room as the new Hakusan shrine, even placing an offering box on their table. Kiriha expresses her gratitude for being allowed to stay as she enjoys some mizu yokan. Kiriha tells her to finish quickly as they have engagements. Kukuri protests as Kiriha tries to drag her to go borrow money for curse forecasts, and Kiriha has Kukuri call Toguri Kanayama. The three are sucked into the shrine where Toguri greets them. Toguri correctly assumes that Kukuri has returned to borrow money, and Kukuri apologizes for not repaying her previous debts. Toguri brings out a deck of golden cards, laying it out for them to play concentration. Toguri explains the rule, and Kukuri whispers to Kiriha a plan. They roll dice to decide the turn order, resulting in Kiriha going first and Toguri last. Kiriha is able to match two 5,000 yen cards before failing turn. Kazuya goes next and picks up a boob smooching card and a butt fondling card. Kiriha shakes Kukuri, demanding an explanation. Kukuri explains that Toguri created the game to sate her desire for little girls. Toguri thanks Kukuri for bringing Kiriha to her. Kiriha attempts to leave, but Kukuri stops her. Kiriha tells Kukuri that she should have warned them beforehand, to which Kukuri explains keeping it secret is part of the deal. Kukuri insists that they simply have to get all the cards to avoid any punishment. Kukuri goes next, picking up an ear nibble and armpit sniff card. Toguri plays her turn, picking up two licking and kissing cards. Toguri ponders who to choose for her prize as Kiriha and Kukuri hold each other in fear. Taguri chooses Kukuri and begins kissing her as Kiriha embraces Kazuya in fear. The game continues as Taguri continually succeeds at matching pairs. Kiriha ends up wearing a revealing catsuit and Kukuri a bunny suit. It is Taguri's turn as only one card has left to be revealed, leaving it easy for Taguri to take the rest of the cards. Taguri picks the last card, full body massage, and Kiriha and Kukuri agree to enact their plan. Kiriha asks Taguri to go to the washroom, asking Taguri to go with her. Taguri rushes with Kiriha to the washroom. While Taguri is gone, Kukuri touches the cards. The two return, as Kiriha confirms with Kukuri she was able to accomplish the task. Taguri sits down and states the cards have been moved, which Kukuri denies. Taguri tells them the fingerprints on the cards have suddenly changed, but the two insist they have not moved any cards. Taguri states if she is correct that they will serve her for a full night. Taguri picks up the card she believes to be full body massage, but finds it as nipple rubbing. Kiriha goes next, picking up the full body massage cards which have not moved. Taguri realizes that the only made it appear as if they were swapped by wiping off their fingerprints and placing them on another card. Kiriha and Kukuri celebrate their victory, which is cut short by Taguri informs them they are not allowed to touch cards when not on their turn. As penalty, the remaining cards go to her. Kiriha and Kukuri shiver in fear as Taguri prepares to have her way with them. Kazuya and his group were able to obtain 175,000 yen at the expense of Kukuri, and Kiriha are left in baby clothes. Taguri greets them farewell, welcoming them to come again, which they refuse. Kiriha watches TV while lying on the table eating rice crackers. Kazuaki asks to watch baseball, which Kiriha responds with a menacing look. Kazuaki is forced to listen to the baseball game from his radio. Kasumi turns off the TV and crosses her arms at Kiriha. Kiriha tries to get the remote from Kasumi but fails. Kasumi directs Kiriha to Kukuri, who is washing dishes. Kasumi appreciates Kukuri's hard work and suggests Kiriha does the same. Kiriha refuses, but is convinced when Kasumi threatens Kiriha by denying her pudding. Kasumi has Kiriha shave potatoes. Kasumi remembers they are out of pork cutlet sauce and calls Kazuya to go buy some. Kukuri and Kiriha finish preparing the cabbages and potatoes. At the store, Kiriha and Kukuri are excited by the large amount of snacks and are reined in by Kazuya, who tells them they are only getting what is on their shopping list. Kukuri and Kazuya find the listed items together. Kukuri sees a couple with a child and imagines herself in a relationship with Kazuya. Kazuya's basket is suddenly filled with pudding as Kiriha whistles. Kiriha cries as Kazuya and Kukuri return the pudding to its stand. Kiriha kneels in front of the pudding stand and begins to sing a pudding song, drawing the attention of a crowd. Kiriha prepares to go into the second verse before Kazuya gives in and takes 1 cup of pudding to Kiriha's delight. Kukuri spots some mizu yokan she wants, but Kiriha and Kazuya are already walking away. Kukuri contemplates crying and singing like Kiriha did, but decides against it. At the checkout, they find a huge line leading to Kokuyu register. Kokuyu thanks them for shopping as Shiru and the other customers gawk at her breasts. Kazuaki dusts off their butsudan while listening to baseball. Kiriha, Kazuya, Kukuri, and Kokuyu walk home together as Kiriha sings. Upon returning home, they eat dinner together. Upon finishing dinner, Kiriha gets excited to eat some pudding. Kukuri cleans the table as Kazuya brings her some mizu yokan, which he reveals to have been on the shopping list. Kiriha and Kukuri happily eat their desserts together. Kazuya sits in the bath as Kazumi, Kukuri, Chisato, Kiriha, and Kokuyu surround him, as he recalls what led to the current situation. Earlier at school that day, Kazuya, Chisto, and Osamu are shocked to find Shiru with a group of girls fawning over him. Shiru greets them, as their other classmates question how he became so popular despite being notoriously unpopular. Chisato chastises Shiru for being inappropriate, causing his groupies insult her. Osamu determines Shiru's increase in popularity to be unnatural. Kiriha agrees, coming outside of Kazuya's backpack and stating it to be an amasogi's doing. Kazuya berate Kiriha for manifesting where his classmates might see her, prompting Kiriha to squeeze his crotch and stating no one will notice her given the situation. Kiriha recalls the curse forecast given to the earlier and tells Kazuya to perform his job as an exorcist. Shiru plays his groupies as Kazuya confronts him about his use of an amasogi. Shiru panics and denies Kazuya's claim as their male classmates overhear Kazuya's mention of a tool to make themselves popular. Their classmates are overcome with the desire to acquire Shiru's perfume and charge towards him. Kazuya uses Kiriha to knock his classmates away. The classmates get right back up and Kiriha explains that their feelings resonating with the amasogi is affecting them as well. Kazuya uses Kiriha to grab Shiro as he, Chisato, and Osamu retreat. The group escape to another classroom to close themselves in on. Their classmate begin to break through the windows to get to them, forcing Kazuya to fend them off. Atop the school rooftop, Kazuya has Shiru explain the situation. Shiru explains, "The previous day he asked Misako Misago out but was rejected." Shiru was enraged that his cologne failed after reading about it in a magazine. Just as Shiru was about to leave the bottle, it began whispering at him to use it again. Kiriha warns Chisato about getting closer to avoid affecting them. Kazuya explains that Shiru needs to destroy it himself. Before destroying, Shiru remembers the fun he had with it. Shiru throws the bottle to the ground, but it bounces off the floor. The bottle leaks with its contents falling over Kazuya. Kazuya finds himself running home from a horde of females of various ages. Kasumi welcomes Kazuya home, startling him. Kazuya goes to take a bath. As he is bathing, Kazumi enters the bath with him. Kokuyu and Kukuri join them and caress Kazuya. Kiriha and Chisato arrive to join in. Kazuya cries about it, happening 3 times in front of everyone. The girls discuss who will be first to take his virginity, playing rock, paper, scissors to decide. The next day, Shiru's curse backlash results in him emanating a foul stench, prompting everyone to avoid him as much as possible. In the past, Sakumi Muratsuki witnesses a suicide atop the school roof, leaving a pair of shoes and a letter behind. At the Hakusan Shrine, Kukuri trains with Kazuya and Kiriha. Kukuri ultimately betests him. Kazuya is beaten by Kiriha for failing and berates him, pushing him to do more training exercises. At school, Osamu finds Kazuya exhausted at his desk. Kazuya complains about Kiriha overworking him, and Chisato tells him not to sleep in class. The 3 of them are called to the student council office, and they suspect something is wrong. The 3 head to the office. Tadataka calls them in when a loud crash is heard from outside. The 3 enter to find Tadataka having tripped on the floor and his wig fallen off, exposing his bald head. Kazuya inquires about his baldness, which Kiriha explains was the curse backlash from destroying the wig amasogi. Chisato ponders the possibility of if it would have happened to her, which Kiriha explains that curse backlash is different depending on the person and amasogi. Tadataka moves the conversation onto the subject at hand. Tadataka explains when alone, students from class 1-5 see Aiko Nago, who died 2 years ago. Tadataka tells them to investigate the matter, Kiriha explaining that ghosts do not exist to her knowledge, and that is likely an amasogi. The group question various students about Aiko and learn the circumstances of her suicide, and that a student from the newspaper club is also investigating it. The group reconvenes outside to share information. Tadataka suggests they interview Aiko's fellow members, Yuichi Nishina and Nanako Nanakai, of the newspaper club. They overhear Nanako pleading with Yu Osakabe for information, who refuses as she is entering a classroom. The group question her, and Nanako expresses her excitement about a real ghost story taking place in their school. A scream is heard as Yu stumbles backwards out of the classroom in fear. A figure appearing to be Aiko emerges from the classroom asking for the letter. Kiriha orders Kazuya to capture it, but it is able to counter his attack. The amasogi escapes and Kiriha beats Kazuya for failing as Nanako expresses her excitement of discovering Kiriha and Kazuya's abilities. The group and Nanako bring Yu to the nurse's office to have her rest and interviews her. Kiriha explains the amasogi being a kamioni, which is a huge threat and requires exorcising immediately. They have Yu explain what happened to Aiko. Yu explains that shortly after entering the school, she and a group of girls formed the Yuichi Nishina fan club, which included Aiko. Yuichi began to show interest in Aiko, which caused conflict within the group. Yu left the group and believes that Aiko was bullied by Muratsuki and the remaining members. Muratsuki was the first to find Aiko's body. The group reconvenes at the office to record their information. A student arrives with information about Aiko for Tadataka, it being that Aiko's sister enrolled at the school having changed her surname. The group rush outside, Kazuya using obi wheels to speed away. Out on the streets, Sakumi is assaulted by the amasogi. Kazuya rushes to her rescue and calls out Nanako using her original name, Nanako Nago. Nanako reveals herself and explains that she wants to know why her sister committed suicide. When the lock of hair from Aiko Nanako manifested, Nanako thought to use it to discover the truth. Kiriha points out that her explanation does not line up with the kamioni, which are born from the feelings of the deceased. Kazuya asks about the letter, to which Nanako explains as the only thing the amasogi has ever said on its own. Nanako questions Muratsuki about the letter. Muratsuki explains that Aiko distanced herself from Yuichi to avoid betraying their group. Muratsuki confesses they bullied her in an attempt to get her to leave the group. The day Aiko died, she expressed her rage at her bullies and acted differently. Muratsuki saw Eiko head to the roof where she found her shoes and the suicide note. Muratsuki hid the note in case Eiko had blamed them for her suicide, being too scared to open or discard it. Kazuya has Muratsuki bring them the letter. Nanako reads the suicide note from her sister detailing the events of a growth forming on her chest, which helped her express her inner feelings. The growth began to tell her that they needed to kill Nanako, prompting Eiko to commit suicide to prevent it taking over. Nanako begins to cry and blames herself for her sister's death, stating she should have died instead. Kiriha realizes that the growth had manipulated Nanako to make her feel as though she had died in order to become a complete kamioni,